Uche's face went pale as he locked eyes with Morayo. Her confusion quickly turned to dread as the woman stood up in haste and shouting, "Who be this one?" with a look of both anger and hurt in her eyes. Morayo's heart sank as Uche's deception unraveled before her. In her head she was thinking, "I hope this isn't what I am thinking," as the lady drew closer and closer to her. This wasn't just any woman. This was his wife and children. Morayo, a radiant and ambitious woman in her early 30s, stood as a rising star in the world of fashion. With her fashion line, M Designs, she had built an empire. Her designs were worn by high-profile clients. Her name graced the front page of magazines, and her shop was always bustling with customers. Despite her soaring career, Morayo yearned for something more, a deep, soulful love that matched the passion she poured into her craft. Morayo needed to feel loved. During a business seminar, she met Uche, a handsome and attentive businessman who seemed to be everything she ever wanted in a partner. With his sweet words, his charm, and the tender way he treated her, Morayo allowed herself to believe she had finally found true love. For the first time in years, Morayo allowed herself to trust again. She had fallen deeply in love. One day, Uche told Morayo that he had to leave town for a business trip. It was nothing unusual, but as days passed, she eagerly awaited his return. Then, Morayo received shocking news. Uche had been in a serious car accident while driving back into the city and was rushed to the hospital. Panicked, Morayo grabbed her car key and drove off to locate the hospital address. She couldn't believe the love of her life was admitted. With her heart racing, she drove off the hospital. On arriving at the hospital, a kind nurse directed her to Uche's room. As she walked into his hospital room, she froze in her tracks at the sight of Uche. He was in a critical state. In an attempt to hug him without noticing the woman sitting at the far end corner of the room. She was a chubby, dark-skinned woman. She had 2 kids sitting next to her. Uche's face went pale as he locked eyes with Morayo. Her confusion quickly turned to dread as the woman stood up in haste and shouting, "Who be this one?" with a look of both anger and hurt in her eyes. Morayo's heart sank as Uche's deception unraveled before her. In her head she was thinking, "I hope this isn't what I am thinking," as the lady drew closer and closer to her. This wasn't just any woman. This was his wife and children. The realization hit Morayo like a ton of bricks as the woman screamed, "Oh, you are the one that has been trying to break my home. The Lord rebuke you. I will show you who I am," turned her fury toward Morayo, grabbing her by the cloth and was ready to strip her naked. A nurse forcefully intervened, pulling Uche's wife away from Morayo. Tears welled up in Morayo's eyes as she gathered herself and fled the room. Morayo stormed out of the hospital, her emotions in turmoil. The humiliation and heartbreak weighed heavily on her as she stood in the parking lot, gasping for air, her mind replaying the events that had just unfolded. For days after the incident, Morayo received countless calls and messages from Uche, apologizing and begging for her forgiveness. He tried to explain that his marriage had been falling apart long before he met her. But Morayo had heard enough. She blocked his number, vowing never to look back. And for weeks she threw herself into her work, trying to bury the pain. She still sewed her best outfits, and customers loved them, but deep down she was so hurt. She vowed never to trust so easily again. Yet deep inside she yearned for a love that wouldn't betray her. Months later, after the devastating betrayal by Mr. Uche, she focused all her energy on growing her business and avoided dating for a while, but as fate would have it, just when she had resolved to stay single, Tayo came into her life. Tayo was smooth, confident, and incredibly persuasive. Unlike the flashy men from her past, Tayo had an air of sophistication that caught Morayo's attention. He seemed to have a genuine interest in her success, often engaging in long conversations about business strategy and global expansion. He is an experienced businessman with a deep understanding of international markets, and he seemed grounded in a future where M Designs could grow beyond Nigeria's borders. But Morayo promised herself to be guarded. Tayo and Morayo's relationship started slowly. At first, they met casually to discuss her business. Tayo was charming but never overtly romantic, which only intrigued Morayo more. His approach felt mature and respectful. He wasn't after her for her looks or her wealth. The subtle flirtation built suspense, and over time, their meetings became more frequent and intimate. One evening, during a particularly lavish dinner, Tayo leaned in close and spoke in a soft, encouraging tone. He told Morayo about an incredible opportunity. A foreign investor had shown interest in M Designs, and with the right funding, they could expand her brand internationally. Tayo emphasized how close they were to striking a deal that would elevate her fashion line, putting her on the map globally. Morayo's heart raced. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for validation, that all her hard work was about to pay off in a big way. Tayo proposed a partnership. He would handle the logistics of the expansion, while Morayo focused on design, but they needed capital to get things moving. Tayo mentioned he had connections with distribution companies overseas, but they required an upfront payment to secure contracts. Tayo assured her that this was the last piece of the puzzle, the one move that would ensure M Designs went global. Morayo hesitated. She had worked so hard to build her business and was protective of her finances, but Tayo reassured her that this was the key to unlocking her dreams. He promised to match her investment and even offered to borrow her some money to ensure they could meet the full amount required, which was a total sum of about $30,000. Reluctantly, but with dreams of expansion flashing in her mind, Morayo agreed. Tayo handed over a sizable portion of his money first, which boosted her confidence. Trusting him more now, Morayo dipped into her savings to add the remaining amount, seeing this as the ultimate step toward her success. She informed her lawyer about her decisions, and they ensured they did a few background checks before proceeding. At first, everything seemed to be going well. Tayo kept her updated on the progress of the deal, sending her documents, emails, and updates about negotiations with overseas distributors. He even talked about future trips abroad, where they would meet investors in person. Then, one morning, Morayo received a text from Tayo that he was flying out to finalize the deal. Days passed without much communication, which Tayo explained away by saying that things were moving fast, and he needed to focus on securing the contracts. Morayo, though slightly uneasy, pushed aside her doubts, chalking it up to the complexities of international business. But the unease slowly turned into full-blown panic when Tayo stopped responding altogether. His phone went straight to voicemail, and emails bounced back. A week passed with no word from him. Morayo's heart sank as she realized something was terribly wrong. She rushed to his apartment, but it was empty. His belongings were gone, as if he had vanished without a trace. Morayo frantically tried to piece together what had happened. She contacted some of the supposed connections Tayo had introduced her to, but they either claimed not to know him or turned out to be fake. The documents he had given her were fraudulent, and she discovered that the overseas company they had been negotiating with didn't even exist. Tayo had orchestrated an elaborate scam, and Morayo had walked right into it. Her lawyer began to make calls, reporting to the police, so investigation could begin swiftly. But it was already too late, as Tayo had already left the country. She immersed herself in work, trying to recover from the setback, but it was clear that the damage went beyond just her bank account. Tayo had robbed her of more than just money. He had stolen her confidence, her dreams. Morayo found herself questioning everything about her life. The constant betrayal had left her wondering if she was never meant to find true love. Maybe, just maybe, she was destined for a life of solitude. One day, feeling overwhelmed by her thoughts, she decided to visit her aunt, lovingly called Big Mummy, who had been like a mother to her since her own mother's passing. Big Mummy was ecstatic to see her, and the warmth between them was evident as they greeted each other with joy, laughing and chatting like two old friends. Myde felt an immediate sense of comfort being in her presence, as if all the worries of the world could melt away just by being around her. As they spent time together, their conversation eventually turned serious. Big Mummy gently asked about Myde's love life. Unable to hold back anymore, Myde broke down in tears, sobbing into her aunt's arms as she poured out all the pain and frustration from the past few months. She recounted the heartbreak, the betrayal, and the emotional exhaustion of constantly being deceived. Big Mummy listened with a sympathetic heart, comforting her niece with wise words. Life throws challenges at us, but you must be strong, my dear. You will find the right man, the one meant just for you, she said with a reassuring smile. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the kitchen, cooking together and sharing stories, laughing as though nothing had happened. In that moment, Big Mummy was the one person with whom Myde could be completely vulnerable, someone who gave her the strength to move forward. As Myde prepared to leave, Big Mummy suggested that she meet with a pastor she knew, someone she believed could offer guidance. Myde hesitated. "No, I don't want to start with all these miracle-seeking pastors," she protested, rolling her eyes. "I've heard too many stories about them, and I don't want to get involved in their drama." But Big Mummy insisted, and though Myde reluctantly agreed just to appease her aunt, she had no intention of contacting the pastor. She took the business card, but knew in her heart she would never dial his number. She had heard too many stories of pastors taking advantage of women, and after all she'd been through, she was determined not to fall into that trap. Months passed, and slowly, Myde began to heal. She wasn't ready to give up on love just yet, and that's when Rhodes came into her life. Rhodes, a strikingly handsome, wealthy businessman in his 40s, who seemed to have the confidence and composure of someone who could never betray her. Rhodes was different from the other men Myde had dated. He wasn't overly flashy or clingy, but his quiet power and charm drew her in. He made her feel safe, grounded, and cherished. Their romance was slow-burning but intense. Rhodes would whisk her away on spontaneous trips to serene locations, where they would spend hours walking along the beach, talking about their dreams and ambitions. He wasn't just a lover. He was an equal, someone who understood her world and her desires. He admired her independence and business acumen, often encouraging her to think bigger, to challenge herself even further. Myde was cautious, but felt herself falling for him deeply. With Rhodes, it wasn't just about material wealth or power. It was about the emotional connection they shared. The nights they spent together felt magical, with candlelit dinners at his penthouse, where they would discuss the future, always hinting at something more. Myde began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had found someone who wouldn't hurt her, someone she could build a life with. As their relationship grew more serious, Rhodes became more involved in Myde's life. He offered to help her with business decisions, introduced her to powerful people, and even hinted at helping her expand M Designs into new markets. Myde was hesitant, remembering how Tayo had betrayed her trust. But Rhodes seemed genuine, always patient, never pushy. His wealth and influence were undeniable, and unlike Tayo, he didn't ask for her money or business. It seemed he wanted to protect her from any harm. But as perfect as Rhodes appeared, subtle signs of trouble began to emerge. He would sometimes disappear for days without explanation, claiming urgent business overseas. On one such occasion, Myde confronted him when he returned. She was upset, feeling like he was distancing himself emotionally, and they had their first real argument. Rhodes, however, was a master of charm. He apologized profusely, blaming the secrecy on the pressures of running a global business. He explained that his deals were often sensitive, requiring confidentiality. His words were convincing, but more than that, his affection and devotion calmed her fears. He would hold her close and reassure her, making Morayo feel guilty for doubting him. This became a pattern each time something suspicious happened. Rhodes would manage to soothe her doubts with a grand gesture. One evening, after another brief disappearance, he surprised Morayo with a romantic dinner on a private yacht, complete with flowers, music, and an intimate dance under the stars. He held her close, whispered sweet nothings in her ear, and made her feel like the center of his world. The tension between them faded, and Morayo's suspicions melted away in his arms. Months passed by, and Rhodes had already started making plans for their future. He had bought an expensive engagement ring and was planning a grand proposal. He told close friends he was ready to settle down with Morayo, that she was the woman he had been waiting for. Morayo, though cautious, had begun to dream of a future with Rhodes. His patience, generosity, and love for her seemed genuine, and despite the occasional unexplained absences, she believed he truly loved her. She had told her friends, Big Mummy, and everyone around. He planned to propose during a weekend getaway to Paris, where he had arranged for a private dinner at the top of the Eiffel Tower. He had pulled strings to make sure everything was perfect, from the chef to the lighting. Morayo had no idea, but she had started to feel that something special was coming. There were hints in the way Rhodes looked at her lately, the way he spoke about their future, and the small, thoughtful gifts he gave her. In the days leading up to the trip, their relationship seemed stronger than ever. They laughed together, shared private jokes, and spent lazy mornings in bed, talking about life. After all the heartbreak she had endured, she had finally found the man she could build a future with. But just before the trip, everything started to fall apart. One night, Rhodes came home late again, looking more stressed than usual. Morayo had had enough. She confronted him, her voice tense, demanding to know where he had been. This time, Rhodes didn't soothe her with gentle words or apologies. Instead, he lashed out, frustrated and evasive, claiming that she didn't trust him and that her constant questioning was driving him away. The argument escalated, with both of them saying things they didn't mean. Morayo accused him of being secretive and unreliable, while Rhodes blamed her for being paranoid, unable to let go of the past. In the heat of the moment, Rhodes stormed out, leaving Morayo alone and devastated. She had never seen him so angry, and for the first time, she began to seriously question everything. Morayo decided to follow her instincts. She hired a private detective to help investigate what Rhodes was really into. Just days before their planned trip to Paris, Morayo received a call from an anonymous number. The voice on the other end told her to meet at a secluded spot and warned her not to tell anyone, especially Rhodes. It was the private investigator she hired. Her heart sank as she headed to the location. Fearful and confused, she went. It was a public shopping mall as the man grabbed her and pulled her sideways into a corner. The private detective revealed the truth. Rhodes wasn't just a successful businessman, he was involved in a series of high-profile kidnappings, money laundering, and other criminal activities. As a matter of fact, it's only a matter of time before the law enforcers will catch up with him, because the last mission they went for wasn't successful. The detective urged her to leave him immediately, for her own safety. Morayo's heart sank. She didn't want to believe it. But deep down, she knew the truth had been there all along, hidden behind the lies and charm. Rhodes had been deceiving her from the start, just like Uche and Tayo. But this time it was worse. This man had not only lied, but had put her life in danger. Devastated, Morayo confronted Rhodes at his penthouse that same night. He was preparing for their trip, excitedly showing her tickets for Paris and the dinner reservation at the Eiffel Tower. But instead of joy, Morayo's heart was full of anger and sadness. She demanded to know the truth. Rhodes, realizing the depth of her knowledge, finally dropped his facade. He tried to explain that his past was complicated, that he had made mistakes, but it was all behind him now. He swore that his love for her was real and that he was planning to propose because he wanted to build a new life with her. Morayo's heart broke all over again as she walked out, leaving behind the man she thought she would marry and the future she thought they would share. After the breakup with Rhodes, Morayo tried to move on with her life. She threw herself into work as usual, trying to forget the emotional wounds and the devastating realization that she had fallen in love with a criminal. But no matter how much she tried, her heart was still raw, and her mind was haunted by the memories of their time together. But the real blow came a few weeks later. Morayo had just returned home after a long, exhausting day at the shop when she turned on the TV. She froze, the remote slipping from her hand as she saw Rhodes' face plastered across every news station. He had been caught, paraded in front of the cameras, his once pristine image now tainted by handcuffs and accusations of organized crime. The sight of him standing there, being led away by police, made her heart sink into her stomach. As the news anchor detailed his involvement in a string of kidnappings and money laundering, Morayo's chest tightened. She couldn't breathe. Her entire world seemed to spiral into chaos. Everyone knew her as the woman who had dated Rhodes, and now his criminal activities were being broadcast for the entire nation to see. What would people think of her? Were they whispering behind her back? Did they think she knew all along? The weight of judgment pressed down on her, suffocating her every thought. In the days that followed, Morayo disappeared. She didn't go to work. How could she face people now? What would her clients think? What would they say about the woman who had been in love with a notorious criminal? The thought of walking into her shop and meeting the eyes of her employees or customers filled her with a dread she couldn't bear. So, she stayed home, locked away from the world, drowning in shame and embarrassment as she sobbed every day. It was in this darkness that the words of Big Mummy echoed in her mind. Months ago, her aunt had urged her to see a pastor, someone who might help her find clarity and healing. She wondered if there was something more to it all, something beyond the physical. Maybe it was time to stop running from the idea that there was a greater force at play. Slowly, hesitantly, Morayo picked up the card that Big Mummy had given her all those months ago. The pastor's number was printed in neat, simple lettering. Her fingers hovered over her phone, her mind racing with doubt. With a deep breath, she dialed the number and listened as it rang, her heart pounding in her chest. As we heard the voice and bells over the phone.
Hello, this is Pastor Omotayo on the line.
Then don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And of course, turn on your notifications because the next episode will be dropping and you don't want to miss it. Thanks.